Welcome back to the QuickBooks Wizard podcast. I'm Brian Cogan, your guide through the tangled forest of bookkeeping. In my years of cleaning up messy QuickBooks files, I've met some strange creatures. We've seen Ask My Accountant, we've wrestled with the Aquarelia, the two-faced monster of cash and accrual. But today we're going to face a creature that's sneakier than all the rest. Miscellaneous. He's not flashy, he doesn't roar, he just sits quietly in the corner of your chart of accounts, waiting for you to get tired, lazy, or confused. And then he grows. The miscellaneous account is a shapeshifter. At first, it seems like a handy drawer where you toss things you're not sure about. One vendor refund here, one odd expense there, but ignore him and suddenly your profit and loss turns into a swamp. You don't know what's hiding in there. Your categories stop making sense. And the decisions you're supposed to make from those reports, they get harder instead of easier. And that's his power. Miscellaneous steals clarity. Today we're going to meet him properly, see how he works, and most importantly, learn how to tame him. Because he does have a place, but only rarely. If you don't set boundaries, he'll take over your books and leave you second guessing every number. So let's shine a light on the miscellaneous monster and get your books out of the swamp.
Beware the miscellaneous account. It seems harmless, but every entry without a name gives the monster new strength.
What exactly is miscellaneous? Technically, it's just another account in your chart of accounts. QuickBooks doesn't even create it for you automatically. You or your accountant have to add it. And on the surface, that might sound harmless enough. But here's what usually happens. You're rushing. You're categorizing transactions at the end of a long day, and you come across something you don't recognize. Maybe it's a $75 charge for some online service. Is it office supplies? Is it software subscriptions? You don't want to stop and figure it out, so you toss it into miscellaneous. Or maybe a client refund hits your bank that doesn't match the invoice you thought it would. Instead of tracking it down, you slide it into miscellaneous and tell yourself you'll fix it later. And then later never comes. Before long, you've trained yourself, or your bookkeeper has trained themselves, to throw everything strange or confusing into the same bucket. You see, nobody wants to look at your butthole. Now, where was I? Or maybe a client refund hits your bank that doesn't match the invoice you thought it would. Instead of tracking it down, you slide it into miscellaneous and tell yourself you'll fix it later. And then later never comes. Before long, you've trained yourself, or your bookkeeper has trained themselves, to throw everything strange or confusing into the same bucket. The balance starts to creep up. Dozens of little charges, deposits, refunds, corrections, all hiding under one heading. And you get used to seeing it there, so it doesn't look alarming anymore. But here's the problem. Reports are only useful when the categories mean something. If everything that didn't fit gets lumped into one giant grab bag, the numbers stop being trustworthy. Think about your profit and loss. You want to see how much you're spending on marketing. But if 3 ad charges accidentally got shoved into miscellaneous, your marketing number is too low. Now your ad spend return looks incredible on paper, but in reality it's wrong. Or say you're reviewing your office supplies. The total looks tiny because half of it's buried in miscellaneous. That means you might overspend, thinking you're being frugal when really the numbers are lying to you. Miscellaneous isn't just a junk drawer. It's a junk drawer that grows into a closet, then into an attic, then into a warehouse. And if you don't go back and clean it out, your financial picture gets fuzzier and fuzzier. Let me give you a story. I worked with a small landscaping company. The owner was a good guy, hard worker, but he hated bookkeeping. He'd dump receipts on his desk and tell his assistant, just throw them wherever, I don't care. That assistant used miscellaneous like a catch-all. When I came in at year end, there were almost $28,000 sitting in miscellaneous. That's not pocket change. We had to dig. Turned out some of it was equipment purchases that should have been capitalized, not expensed. Some were fuel charges that really belonged in cost of goods sold. Some were owner draws. But because it was all thrown together, the reports made 0 sense. His net income was distorted. His tax return prep was a nightmare. He had no idea whether he'd actually been profitable. That's what miscellaneous feeds on, confusion. And here's the tricky part. Miscellaneous isn't always evil. Sometimes there really are transactions that don't have a clear home. Maybe you get a one-off rebate check from a vendor. Maybe you receive a refund from an overpaid utility bill. Those things don't happen often, and it may not make sense to create a brand new permanent account for something you'll see once every 3 years. So you park it in miscellaneous temporarily, and that's okay. The danger is when temporary turns into permanent. I've seen businesses where year after year, thousands of dollars just pile up in miscellaneous. And every time the accountant asks, what was this for, the owner shrugs. That shrug is expensive. It means deductions might get missed. It means legitimate assets might get overlooked. It means mistakes stay buried. And it means the report you rely on to make decisions are quietly rotting from the inside out. So here's the truth. If you can't explain what's in miscellaneous, you can't trust your reports. And if you can't trust your reports, you're flying blind. That's what gives miscellaneous its power. Not one transaction here or there, but the habit of using him as a hiding place. And when you do that, he grows. He doesn't roar and announce himself like some monsters do. He creeps in silently, stuffing things into corners until the picture's distorted. And that's when decisions get dangerous. You'll think you've got more cash than you really do. You'll believe you're profitable when you're not. Or worse, you'll panic and think you're losing money when you're actually doing fine. That's what I mean when I say miscellaneous steals clarity. He doesn't break your books outright. He just muddles the water until you don't know which way is up. And when you don't know which way is up, you start doubting QuickBooks, doubting your bookkeeper, and sometimes even doubting your own ability to run the business. That's when you've lost. But the good news is miscellaneous is one of the easiest monsters to shrink. The first step is awareness. You see him, you recognize him, and you stop feeding him. You go back through the pile and put things where they belong. And then you build a habit of asking, where should this really go? Instead of defaulting to miscellaneous. That's when clarity returns. That's when your that's when your reports become tools you can actually use.
Throw it here! Toss it there! I'll swallow it all! Who needs categories when I can hold everything?
He's tempting, isn't he? Because in the moment it feels easier. But if you let him grow, he'll choke out the answers you really need. So remember, miscellaneous isn't always evil. Sometimes there truly isn't a better place. Sometimes you're just waiting for clarification. That's fine. The problem comes when you never circle back. That's when confusion takes root, and that's what he feeds on, is confusion.
Miscellaneous is not always evil. He has his place, but only rarely. Let him spread, and he'll choke out every clear answer.
When you're buried in receipts, bank feeds, and transactions, miscellaneous feels like a shortcut. You don't have time to analyze every little charge, so you tell yourself, I'll just dump it here and come back later. But here's the thing. Later rarely comes. You get busy, more charges pile up, and pretty soon miscellaneous is no longer a placeholder, it's your default. I once worked with a retailer who did exactly this. Anytime they couldn't decide between cost of goods sold and office expense, they picked miscellaneous. At the end of the year, they had $42,000 sitting in that account. When I asked what it was, they shrugged. Think about that. $42,000 a shrug. Lots of shrugging going on. You can't make smart decisions when you're shrugging, and when nearly 50 grand of your activity has no name.
Don't worry about it. Just toss it in me. Decisions are hard, and I make them disappear. No one needs to know what it really was.
The illusion is that you're saving time, but what you're really doing is borrowing trouble from the future, because every transaction you park in miscellaneous is a decision deferred. And when tax time comes, those decisions come back with interest. You either spend hours unraveling the mess or you risk misreporting. Neither option feels like a shortcut anymore. Here's another real-world example. A construction company I work with threw every fuel charge, tool purchase, and random Home Depot run into miscellaneous. 6 months later, they try to figure out why their job costing didn't match reality. The truth? Half their supply expenses were hidden in that bucket. Jobs that looked profitable on paper were actually losing money because materials were being misclassified. That one bad habit meant they were bidding future projects with false confidence and nearly lost their shirts on a big contract.
Convenience is the trap. Every time you toss something into miscellaneous, you trade clarity for comfort. That's no bargain, my friend.
And here's the kicker. Banks and investors notice. Imagine showing a lender your profit and loss and they see a big miscellaneous line item. What do they think? They don't see efficiency. They see chaos. They see a business owner who doesn't know their own numbers. One bank officer once told me, when I see miscellaneous, I see risk. If you don't know where your money went, how can I trust you with mine? That's the kind of judgment miscellaneous invites. Now, are there legitimate uses? Sure. There are always oddball expenses that don't fit neatly anywhere. A one-off parking ticket, a quirky licensing fee. Maybe you're waiting on clarification from a vendor. That's fine. But if your miscellaneous count is more than a tiny fraction of your total expenses, think 1 or 2% tops, it's not a tool anymore. It's a monster running loose.
Tiny fraction? Ha! Give me thousands! Give me tens of thousands! The bigger I grow, the stronger my confusion becomes.
I get it. Some owners feel like creating a new account is overkill for one small charge. And sometimes it is. But QuickBooks makes adding accounts easy. In fact, I'd rather see a business with a few too many accounts than one where huge amounts sit in miscellaneous. At least with too many accounts, we can recognize and merge. With miscellaneous, we're guessing. And let me add this. Not everything that lands in miscellaneous is truly miscellaneous. Sometimes it's an error. I once found payroll expenses sitting in there. That's not a obscure, that's a mistake. And mistakes sitting in miscellaneous multiply fast because nobody looks there until it's too late. I've also seen personal charges sneak in. Owners swipe the business card for groceries or gas, and instead of catching it, the bookkeeper shoves it into miscellaneous. That doesn't just cloud reporting, it can raise red flags with the IRS. When personal and business blur, the consequences go far beyond messy books. Suddenly you're defending deductions you never should have claimed in the first place.
Errors love to hide in shadows. Shine a light, and they scatter. Leave them in miscellaneous, and they breed.
So what's the solution? Make a deal with yourself. If you use miscellaneous, it's temporary. Treat it like a holding pen, not permanent pasture. Review it monthly. If something stays in there longer than 30 days, move it to its rightful home. That way, miscellaneous doesn't become a swamp, it becomes a checkpoint. And here's the payoff. Clarity takes a little effort up front, but it saves hours, stress, and money later. Convenience feels good in the moment, but miscellaneous is a liar. He promises ease, but he delivers confusion. And in business, confusion costs.
Confusion is my favorite meal. Keep feeding me, and I'll keep you guessing forever.
Don't let him. If you want clarity, stop letting miscellaneous grow unchecked. A small effort today protects your confidence tomorrow. And remember, every dollar has a story, but only if you put it where it belongs. By now you can see the problem. Miscellaneous isn't just clutter. He actively hides the truth. Let me give you a real-world example. I once worked with a contractor who had nearly $15,000 sitting in miscellaneous at year end. He didn't even notice it because his focus was on receivables and cash flow. When I dug in, that $15,000 turned out to be three things: duplicate expense entries, deposits that should have been applied to customer invoices, and a whole batch of recurring charges from a software subscription he had stopped using months earlier. Think about that. If he had filed taxes with that number sitting in miscellaneous, he would have overstated expenses, understated income, and probably triggered questions from the IRS. Not because he was honest or not because he was dishonest, but because miscellaneous became his junk drawer. And when the junk drawer grows big enough, it distorts the whole picture. And remember, when the picture's distorted, every business decision you make is built on bad information.
One place, one number, clean and simple. Feed me everything, and your clarity vanishes.
See how sneaky he is? He's not wrong. On the surface, dumping everything into miscellaneous makes the report look clean. Just one tiny light item. But that clean hides the mess. Your profit and loss might look shorter, but it's also less useful. You can't tell if marketing worked, if payroll ballooned, or if your software costs are eating you alive. Here's another client story. A restaurant owner had $7,000 in miscellaneous. We traced it out. We found that half was repairs and maintenance, things like fixing the ovens and patching leaks, and the other half was bank fees from a new merchant processor. Both were legitimate expenses, but they told very different stories. Repairs and maintenance said the equipment was aging and might need replacement soon. Bank fees said the processor was charging way too much. But buried together under miscellaneous, the owner had no idea. She thought she was spending a little on random odds and ends. That's the danger, not knowing what story the numbers are actually telling. And when you don't know the story, you can't act on it. You don't fix the ovens in time, or you don't switch processors, and the costs keep piling up.
Knowledge shrinks monsters. Separate the repairs, name the bank fees, and the picture sharpens. Leave them buried, and miscellaneous grows fatter in the shadows.
And that's the heart of it. Numbers are supposed to tell a story. Categories give context. When you create clear accounts, marketing, rent, supplies, subscriptions, you're building sentences that make sense. Miscellaneous rips out the nouns and verbs and replaces them with a mumble. Let's go deeper. Imagine you're applying for a loan. The banker pulls up your P&L and sees miscellaneous $12,000. What do you think happens next? They lean back, raise an eyebrow, and ask, what's in there? And you know what most owners say? I don't know. That's not the confidence you want to project. Lenders and investors want clarity. They want to see that you understand your business inside and out. A big fat miscellaneous line screams, I don't have control over my details. That can cost you financing. It can even cost you opportunities to sell your business down the road. And it's not just bankers. Potential partners, buyers, even savvy employees will pick up on it. A vague P&L makes them question whether you really have a handle on things. And here's the kicker. It's not hard to fix. The hardest part is just deciding. Was it office supplies, travel, a refund? Once you name it, the fog lifts. And once the fog lifts, decision-making gets sharper. Instead of fumbling in the dark, you're looking at real numbers that tell you where to cut, where to invest, and where to adjust.
Deciding is so much work. Why bother? I'll take care of it all. You relax and let me grow bigger, stronger.
That's what he wants, to make you think it's easier to ignore. But every dollar you let him hoard makes your reports weaker. Every vague entry makes your decision-making shakier. I tell clients this all the time. Miscellaneous isn't the enemy because he exists. He's the enemy because he grows. The larger he gets, the less you trust your numbers. And once you stop trusting your numbers, every choice feels like a gamble. And when choices feel like gambles, you hesitate. Opportunities pass you by. That hesitation can be more damaging than any single bad transaction. But here's the good news. You don't have to let him win. The moment you start cleaning him out, he shrinks. Reclassify expenses. Create proper accounts. Ask your bookkeeper for help. Every entry you move out is another piece of clarity regained. And clarity, that's what keeps your business healthy. Clarity is the difference between running your business with confidence and crossing your fingers every time you make a big decision.
Shrink him, and the path brightens. Leave him, and the shadows spread. The choice is always yours.
So here's the takeaway from this segment. Miscellaneous isn't just a lazy choice. He's a trap. A small account left unchecked becomes a monster. Clean him out regularly. Keep him small and your reports will stay sharp. Ignore him and you'll end up making decisions in the dark. And business decisions made in the dark almost always cost more than the times you thought you were saving. So how do you deal with miscellaneous once it's already in your books? The answer is not to panic, and it's not to delete it. Deleting transactions is like ripping pages out of your history. You lose the record, you confuse your accountant, and you could even trigger tax issues. The better way is to reclassify. QuickBooks Online has a tool built right in, the reclassify transaction function under the accountant toolbox. You can sort through everything sitting in miscellaneous, and with a few clicks, move charges into the right categories. It's a clean sweep without erasing the past.
Reclassify. Don't erase. Every number has a home. You just have to find it.
Here's the process I recommend. Once a month, run a profit and loss report. Scan for miscellaneous. If you see a balance, dig in. Don't let it roll from month to month. If you're not sure where something belongs, make a note. Drop it into a temporary holding account like Ask My Accountant, and then reach out to your bookkeeper or CPA for clarification. The goal isn't to have every answer in the moment, but to make sure nothing gets forgotten. And let me slow this down with some practical steps. Open your chart of accounts and make sure miscellaneous is visible. Run a transaction detail by account report filtered from miscellaneous. This shows you every item feeding that line. Start with the obvious ones: subscriptions, utilities, payroll costs. Anything you recognize immediately, reclassify those first. For items you're unsure about, use the memo field. Add a quick note like ask vendor or verify with receipts. That way, when you circle back, you don't waste time wondering what you were thinking. Finally, reconcile after reclassifying. You want to make sure moving charges didn't throw your balances off. I had one client who treated miscellaneous like a black hole. Every weird charge went in, and by the end of the year, we were staring at nearly $20,000 in that one account. Sorting it out at tax time was like solving a mystery novel with half the pages missing. By the time we got through it, the IRS deadline was staring us down, the client's stress level was through the roof, and frankly, it cost them extra because of the hours it took me to unravel it all. Contrast that with another client who made cleanup part of their monthly routine. Every first Friday, they pulled up the report, spent 30 minutes reclassifying, and by year end, miscellaneous was under $200. Their tax prep was smooth. Their tax prep was smooth. Their banker loved their clarity, and they weren't paying me to play detective. A little prevention saved thousands.
Ha! The longer you wait, the fatter I get. Feed me all year and I'll ruin your finale.
That's the trap. Let miscellaneous grow, and it feeds on your time, your money, and your peace of mind. But keep it small, deal with it monthly, and suddenly it loses its power. And prevention? That's even better. You don't have to wait until miscellaneous is a monster to act. Start by tightening up your chart of accounts. If you sell software, make sure you have a category for subscriptions. If you reimburse employees, make sure you've got a line for reimbursements. The more complete your setup, the less often you'll be tempted to toss something into miscellaneous. Another trick I like is to create a temporary suspense account. That way you separate 2 question marks from the junk drawer. Suspense means this needs attention, don't ignore it. Miscellaneous too often means I gave up and stopped thinking. That's a huge difference. And if you're working with QuickBooks Online, you can even set up bank rules. For example, if every charge from Adobe is really software expense, create a rule that catches it automatically. The fewer decisions you leave for later, the less likely you are to lean on miscellaneous.
A clean chart, a careful eye, and a little discipline, that's your shield. With them, miscellaneous can't grow fangs.
I want to leave you with this. Miscellaneous isn't evil by nature. It's just lazy bookkeeping. And lazy bookkeeping snowballs. It confuses you, confuses your accountant, and makes every decision harder than it needs to be. But once you understand how it works, once you see the monster for what it is, you can tame it. Don't let miscellaneous steal your clarity. Reclassify what doesn't belong. Tighten up your categories, and use your reports the way they were meant to be used, as a true reflection of your business. Because when you do, your profit and loss stops looking like a swamp and starts looking like a map that actually points you somewhere useful, a map you can hand to a banker, an investor, or even yourself and know it tells the truth.
I'll always be here, lurking. But clean me up quick, and I won't get a chance to feast.
And that's the real resolution. Not pretending miscellaneous doesn't exist, but keeping him in his place. You'll still see him now and then, but if you know how to tame him, he never gets the upper hand. And that wraps up episode 5 of the QuickBooks Wizard podcast, The Miscellaneous Monster. We've taken a full tour of who he is and how he sneaks into your books. We saw how he tempts you with convenience, promising you'll save time if you just toss charges into his bucket. We saw how he hides the truth, turning real numbers into a blur that robs you of clarity. And we saw how he thrives on neglect. The longer you ignore him, the fatter and stronger he gets. But here's the good news. You're not powerless. We also looked at how to tame him. Clear categories give your numbers a voice. Regular reviews keep him from spreading. And the discipline to reclassify, to treat miscellaneous as temporary, never permanent, keeps him in check. The monster only wins if you look away. And this isn't just about accounting. It's about confidence. When your books are clear, you make better decisions. You know whether your marketing is working, whether your jobs are profitable, and whether your business is truly healthy. That's not just bookkeeping. That's leadership. And leadership is what keeps monsters small. If today's episode gave you a new way to see your books, check the show notes. I've added links, examples, and resources so you can put this into practice right away. Try one tip this week. Maybe run a transaction detail by account report. Maybe reclassify one stubborn charge. Maybe just commit to checking miscellaneous monthly. Small steps make big differences. If you want company on the journey, don't go it alone. Join us at survivingquickbooks.com. It's a space where business owners and bookkeepers swap stories, share solutions, and even laugh together at the monsters we all face. Because when you realize you're not the only one fighting miscellaneous, the fight gets a lot easier. Thanks for listening, thanks for learning, and thanks for doing the work that makes your business stronger. I'll see you in the next episode.
Miscellaneous may linger, but with clarity he fades. Keep your eyes sharp, your categories cleaner than your desk drawers, and may your books always balance.